Welcome back to another episode of the Pop Culture Punks podcast. This is your host, Phil, and across from me is your boy,
Josh.
We're here to bring some of that pop culture conversation to your ears.
To your head.
Not to the pit.
We're
not in the pit anymore, baby, because it's a new year.
It's a new year, new things.
So,
Positive vibes.
For you guys, it's been, a week? For us, it's been 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Because we had a whole planning thing, so it feels good to be back in the chair.
Yes, it does.
Back behind the mic.
Darn right.
So yeah, this week we're going to be talking a little bit about the new DC film, Aquaman, and then going through the new Spider-Man film, which has kind of been slept on if you look at the numbers, but we'll get into that.
Really? I'm kind of intrigued by that.
Money-wise, it's kind of been slept on. But yeah, we'll be talking about those two films and kind of our thoughts on them and the implications for the industry, as if we have any knowledge about the industry. And
of course we do.
We got all the knowledge.
We pay money.
Yeah. So then, yeah, we got that. But before we get into that, we have some exciting prospects for 2019.
Yes, we do.
We met recently and kind of planned some things out. So I don't know.
We went hard.
We went hard.
Let me just say, this has been a very fun journey doing this show, because when we started, it was like, I guess I'm down to talk after brunch, and then it turned into like, I guess I'm down to talk about games
once in a while and
every so often. And now we're like in the swing of it, but it has never been super planned. And so a little peek behind the curtain. So usually for our topic, we planned at the beginning of the week to kind of give us some prep time, and then we'd bring it and we'd discuss. So we kind of had, our thoughts mulled out, and it wasn't just off the cuff like it was really early on when we were starting. But this year, one of our goals is to knock it up a notch. Bam! Spice Weasel, boy.
Yep.
So in order to knock it up another notch, what our goal is to actually schedule out all our episodes we actually have through, May? April. We have every episode through the month of April planned out to a T.
Yep.
So you will know the content, you will know all the stuff in that episode that we will be talking about, and our hope in making that available for all of you as listeners is so that if you happen to be interested in coming along with us on the journey leading up to that episode or whatever, that you will know exactly what we're talking about and exactly what the topic is and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So if you feel like formulating your thoughts to kind of put them up against ours, like during the episode or after the episode or whatever, that you can actually come along on the journey with us, because we were thinking
we'll probably do it on a monthly basis.
Yes.
Not like
Yep.
we're gonna give you all of the episodes. So
exactly.
It'll be monthly, and then maybe
Yes.
weekly we'll remind you so you can keep up to date and
Definitely
prepare with us and join in on the conversation. So
Exactly.
we're not just talking to each other; we're also talking to you.
Yeah, because that's our goal. So our goal is to genuinely build a kind of like community through this, and we thought the best way to do that is to actually let people know what we're going to be talking about, so that if they want to go find it or pick it up or rent it or watch it or read it or whatever, they can do that and feel like they have the time to actually engage with it.
And maybe they can send questions beforehand instead of after the fact.
Yep.
So
perfect. That too.
hopefully that works.
Yes.
That's kind of the plan, and we don't want it to sound too rigid, because it's definitely still going to be conversational.
It's going to be the same vibe.
And if something comes up, we're going by the seat of our pants still, but we got a little bit of plans now.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and we're pumped. We're juiced.
And so we hope that will bring some excitement to just get people hyped for upcoming episodes. We've got some returning guests coming this year, which we're really excited about. And so to list out for the first time, and like Phil said, we'll be listing it out every week, so that those of you who are not on social media or who don't follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, can still be up to date of what episodes are coming down the pipes. And I will try to be good about making sure I update every episode in the show notes.
And normally we'll probably tack it on to the end instead of the beginning, but we're
just excited
for this one. We're
so
excited. Yeah, we got a lot to get through. So.
Yes, we do. So in the month of January, and going forward, episodes will always come out Monday at noon. So that will be be standard.
Monday instead of Tuesday.
Yep. And so episodes are going to be going as follows for the month of January. So 1/7, which will be this current episode that you're listening to, is, as you know, Aquaman and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The following week, 1/14, we'll be discussing some of the things that are predicted to come out in 2019, general hype for the year, stuff that we hope comes out this year, stuff that we hope doesn't come out. I don't know, maybe.
Keep it posse, baby.
Keep it posse, baby. So that'll be the third episode of January. And then 121, we will actually be discussing a topic that happened technically last year, but we wanted to make sure we paid it proper due and gave ourselves time to really think and process through it. And so we will be talking about some comments that good old Bill Maher made about Stan Lee and pop culture and man children and stuff like that. So we'll be on 121 we'll be going over and returning to some of those comments and not just poking at what he said, but just kind of looking at the broader discussion around pop culture and
stuff,
who's allowed in, who isn't, and what we think about that. And lastly, and this is probably the one if you want to be the most engaged with, it might require some homework.
Well, maybe the Bill Maher one too. Check out the articles. There's a couple that he wrote.
Yeah,
and
if you
some
just Google it.
Yeah.
And so the last episode of the month, which will be 128, we will be discussing the Gears of War franchise, games 1 through 3.
Yep.
I don't know why. I can't remember why we decided to Gears of War. I think we both I was super excited.
I've never played it.
Yes.
And you're pretty stoked on it. And
I'm a big fan.
And Gears 5 comes out this year, so we'll probably do a follow up with 4 and 5 later in the year when that comes out. So I think it's convenient, and I think we wanted to do some 360 stuff. And
definitely.
So if you want to get in on that, pick it up. It's on Xbox. It's on the Game Pass if you got it. Otherwise, it's backwards compatible. So you can just buy it for like $8.
Right. Or if you have a 360, I think you could probably get the first 3 games for under $5 at GameStop. So it's really cheap. So and if you have an Xbox One, they are all backwards compatible. So, or if you happen to be a game watcher and you just kind of want to experience the story, I'm sure there's some really great Let's Plays out there. Yeah. And I will actually do some hunting and list some Let's Players that we can shout out to if you want to go that route, if you don't have the console, but want to know about the general story and vibe of the Gears of War franchise. So I'm actually really excited for that one because it's been... Gears of War is one of my... that was one of the franchises, that and Halo, which, I mean, I feel like are Microsoft's only big franchises to a degree, but those two were the ones that when I left my 360 for a PS4, that was probably the hardest thing to swallow, was like no more Gears of War and no more Halo. Yeah,
I've been playing it. It's fun. So I'm excited to get through the first 3 and talk about it. 3
is heavy. Two gets... The first one is pretty just kind of general, like, brutish dude chainsaw massacre.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting so far. It's pretty linear and pretty just, like, brooding.
2 gets a little more emotional. There's a little more
people online are saying 2 is... It's kind of a toss-up between 2 and 3 for being the best based on, like, campaign versus multiplayer and stuff.
Yeah, I think
we probably won't talk about multiplayer just because...
Yes, that's not the thing. It'll be about the world, the lore, gameplay
and stuff,
stuff like that. So, and 3, I think you'll like 3 the most, if I had to guess.
Dope.
But yeah, so be on the lookout for those episodes as they come out in the next few weeks. We're really excited with a lot of the stuff that we have planned, and we really hope that this will kind of help build the podcast into a community that people feel equipped to engage with, because I think that was something we wrestled with, is how much, because of our short-term planning, it was kind of like, well, either you've already played this or heard about this and you already kind of know some stuff, or you're just finding out about it from us. And so we want to make sure that you have equal time, just as we are. So for the next 3 weeks, those are the only games I'll be playing. Yeah. I mean, you might be chipping away at some other.
Probably a little more free time than
so
if those are the podcast ideas, and once February comes around, we'll get you those ones. But if you have any thoughts or questions, or you watch some gameplay or play Gears or read the Bill Maher article, shoot us an email at popculturepunks@gmail.com, and we can feature your questions or your thoughts.
Absolutely.
And help you join into our conversation.
Definitely.
With all this stuff. So
yeah.
And on the note of user submissions, we had a couple. I think assuming you were done with your whole...
That's pretty much it. So, be excited.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun year.
We're excited, so hopefully you're excited too. So we had a couple user submissions. One from our fan, Josh, and one from another fan, Antonio, which this was his first submission, I think.
It was, I think.
So that was exciting.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, those two won our competition from 2018.
Yes, they did.
So it feels good to actually succeed in doing a competition. And they won gift cards, so yeah.
So you dudes need to send us photos or selfies.
Yeah, if you
Whatever
end
your
up buying
merch
some
is.
merch, if you're listening to this, shoot us some pics.
Sounds good.
So yeah,
Not in a creepy way, just no.
Just
I
off
could,
the just
I
off the
could
merch.
see Tony, knowing Tonio
Yeah, he's gonna do
would screw
something,
with us. Yeah, shoot, I shouldn't have said it because now he's absolutely gonna do it.
Oh yeah.
This is the dude that on like those things that they do at weddings where you usually sign like a book, or like the new thing is you sign like a picture or whatever. So we had a canvas with our picture in the middle, and I think I found all of them, but he signed it like 6 or 7 times, and he was like, "Hey, it's Tonio, happy marriage," and then it was like, "It's me again, Tonio," and then it's like one more time, Tonio. It's just like all
I'm just
over.
imagining him throughout the night coming back to it, and
I'm sure that's what happened.
Yeah.
Is he did it multiple times during the night,
Yeah.
and like now I've just been like every time I kind of like am over by that wall. I'm like, I wonder if I
I
missed
can find
one.
another one.
Yeah, I wonder
That's
if I missed
fantastic. I didn't know
one.
that.
So that's a fun
Yeah.
Tonio story.
So do we want to read his email?
Yes,
It was
go for
pretty
it.
funny.
It's pretty hilarious.
I'll see if I can find it. Search my emails here.
See, this we need to get like a cool like desk thing. That's step number 2. So we plan more. Step number 2 is to have like little TV trays that we can have like computers and stuff on. That's actually a good idea. I might look into that.
Yeah.
Dude, TV trays are invaluable.
I love TV
Invaluable.
trays. Fantastic. So here's the email. The subject line was Nigerian prince in need of Christmas money.
Nice.
Not fan mail. I was like, okay, this is going to be good. So hopefully there's nothing in here incriminating.
I don't think so.
So here's the body. Hello, punkologists that specialize in the genre of culture that pops. Q1. Recently, one of my favorite YouTube channels, Best Friends Plays, or Super Best Friends, called it quits. It came abruptly Sunday morning when they released a video, each explaining that 2 of the 3 members weren't best friends anymore, and that differences in creative direction and business led them to being unhappy with working as a group. This seemed to come out of nowhere for the followers that only followed them on YouTube and not Twitter. There's actually no question in there, so...
I think that was a statement.
Yeah, that was... Q1 is a statement. But then there's a question after that. Besides the Marvel Netflix series that were canceled this fall, what other series or groups were you... Oh, here's the question. What other series or groups were you upset to find out had been canceled or disbanded? Were you surprised by the cancellation, or did you see it coming?
It's a good question.
That is a good question. And now it makes sense with the statement above. Q2. In one of the podcasts released by Super Best Friend Cast, a writer asked what currently released songs would they choose for a boss fight. My question expands on that a little. What current music would you use in different sections of a game, such as a chase scene, a menu screen, a normal non-fighting scene, or a boss/mini boss encounter? Feel free to come up with other scenarios. Catch you next week. Altonio, aka Half Tonio.
Half Tonio, baby.
Oh gosh, I love that name.
All right.
So yeah, that's the
our
thing.
That's our first email.
That's the first.
And so in regards to the cancellation question, I think I've been actually pretty fortunate to not have a lot of things that I love outright canceled. But there's been a few, and I think he kind of phrased it around more music. Like, did he phrase it around like music, or is it just kind of anything that got canceled?
It's pretty much, it says series or groups or...
Okay, perfect.
Basically anything that you
Anything
were
that got
bummed
canceled.
about.
So I think probably the biggest thing that I was super, super, super bummed when it closed out was Psych. That show was my senior year of high school. Like that, it was the weirdest thing where my family found it on Netflix, and I remember there was one night where we literally watched probably close to like 7 or 8 episodes. And I mean, it's like a 45-minute long show. Oh, yeah. So it's not short.
That's
but we binged.
Run,
yeah, so we binged it. We literally got home at like 4 or 5 and threw it on, and like then we found the yin and yang episodes that are like really intense.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we have to watch all the parts, and so we like watched all those, and we're like, well, we have to start the show from the beginning. And from there, it took over, and like that was their thing. But I remember, I think it actually canceled because I remember watching it with Mark and Josh
in their dorm.
Yeah, and so we'd like meet up every week and we watched.
That was fun.
Was it season 7 or season 8? I think season 8 was the last one.
Because that was actually like, I hadn't seen all of it at that point, but it was more just like that was my first foray into actually like sitting down and watching it serially, and that was really fun. Yeah, it's a good show.
It's so much fun, and especially if you're an 80s pop culture fan and just the banter, and it's such a show that plays off of pop culture jokes and inside things, and I just absolutely loved it. But I was super bummed when they announced that they were canceling it. I think a lot of the stars on the show actually started doing like bigger things. Like I think Dule Hill ended up in like a movie. The actress who plays Juliet, I think ended up in a couple like CBS shows or something. Or people were kind of like all over the board.
Moving all over, yeah.
But I was so bummed when I saw the news. But they were super cool because the season actually ends on a pretty big cliffhanger that I think made people really, really mad. I was kind of bummed. But they just released, I think it was only like last year or 2 years ago, a movie length episode, I think, or like an hour 20. It's like a little under a movie length, I think, but it just kind of wraps up the whole Psych saga and like holistically, and it's perfect. It's so good. It's exactly what you'd want it to be. But yeah, awesome. I think so. From like media, I think Psych was like the biggest show that ever got canceled that I was like super, super bummed about. I can't think of any other ones that I've been super invested in that have gone off the rails. I was pissed that Attack on Titan took like 5 years to
that one sucked.
to get to season 2, but it was so worth it.
Yeah.
So unbelievably worth it. Music wise, same deal. I was pretty bummed when Disturbed went on hiatus. But I mean, they ended up going on hiatus no longer than it would have taken them to write a new album. I think, based on how the timeline went when Immortalized came out, I think they literally probably were working on it during that whole stretch. So, not too much love lost there. I can't think of. I've been very fortunate to not have been scarred by
people
like,
disbanding.
Yeah, by people.
Yeah,
leaving.
I can't really think of anything either. The only thing that stands out to me is the TV show Heroes, which isn't really even that good, but it just ends completely on like a cliffhanger because it was something with like the writer's strike or something that the show just got canned, and it came back and it was decent, but it was kind of like the story was over.
Yeah.
That's the main one that stands out. Music wise, the whole Blink-182 saga bums me out when I think about it. So
yeah, that was a ride. That made me think of something because there was another NBC show. I think it was NBC or it was Fox. I'm pretty sure it was NBC. It's called Surface. Do you remember that at all? It was
that
very.
Makes me think of one now.
Yeah. No, this is hilarious because like I think and maybe it's the suppressed memories, but there was this show called Surface where this kid finds this like little amphibious lizard thing and he starts taking care of it and all this weird stuff in the town starts happening. And the last episode of the season was basically all these giant creatures flooding the whole earth, and then there being like 5 or 6 people still alive, who were the majority of which were like main characters. And that was it. And they never made another season. And I remember when I was a kid, that was like the weirdest. It was one of the first more adult focused, not like obnoxiously adult, but you know, it's like a PG or a TV 14 show. And I think I was in like middle school when I was watching it. And every Thursday night, like that was what I did. Is my dad and I would chill in the basement and we would watch Surface. And that's how it ended. And that was probably my first pop culture heartbreak.
Your first heartbreak. Yeah.
I can't think of anything else beyond that, but I'm sure what will happen is you will say yours and I will remember another one.
Well,
that was the big one.
Yeah, the one I just thought of is actually bittersweet. Not bittersweet. That's the wrong term for it. But Brooklyn Nine-Nine got canceled, and I was super bummed because I love that. Like, that's the one show because like I love sitcoms, but I usually don't like bust out loud laughing at them because it's kind of just like funny humor. Like, you just get it. But Brooklyn Nine-Nine, like the first few seasons, I just like was almost on the floor just laughing. I don't know why. And then they canceled it. But luckily, I think NBC or ABC or one of these networks picked it back up and like retook it from Fox. So it's kind of like NBC. A sad back to happy story.
Yes, and
that's the one I thought of.
It starts back.
It starts back
Thursday.
up in April, or is it Thursday?
I saw an ad. I saw a random banner ad. I don't know if that's true though. Don't quote me on that.
Bro, dude, I'm looking this up now.
Yeah.
That's the one that like crushed my heart when I saw it. I was like,
that's a good one though.
Like, good shows are so underappreciated. It seems.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird because
nobody watches it for some reason. Like, but
that's what I don't understand.
And
I wonder if it's the perfect show. Like, Gloria and I watched it.
It is coming back, January 10th.
Dang, dude.
Oh, my
Gloria's going to be stoked.
Oh, my. Dude, I'm so excited.
Yeah. Awesome. Because I was like, that can't be right. I thought it was coming out later in the year,
Oh,
but
God.
no, that's sick. All right, cool. Well,
Yep.
there's that.
I'm good. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
Let's wrap it up.
One last one. It's
and
not
then
an
we'll get to
official.
the next question.
Yeah, it's not an official cancellation, but some of the rumors swirling around it is Mass Effect. And that makes me really sad because
I mean, it kind of got
they
canned.
butchered
It's like
they
it's on the
butchered
icebox.
Andromeda,
Yeah.
and they put it in cryosleep, and they're
Mhm.
no pun intended, and they're just kind of letting it hang out for
Next
a little
up,
bit.
Dragon Age.
Dude, hey, but apparently they're making one right now. So
yeah, so this will be the
so
last
I think
one.
I think Anthem.
BioWare's or EA is gonna be like,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
Anthem fails, like I
Oh,
feel like
it's-
BioWare's dead.
Yeah. Oh, they're toast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see.
There's probably plenty of studios that we can list off that have been
That's
killed.
very true.
But
That's
yeah,
very
I feel
true
like
as
that
well.
does the question justice.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
next
Sweet.
question.
Thanks, Tonio, for your email.
Next question, we could do quick music and video game scenes. I can't really think of any. I feel like the music I listen to doesn't lend itself to video games.
I think that's the thing because part of me with that question was like, I don't know if I have specific songs for specific scenarios because one, I'm not that talented to know what
I'm
music
just
best
not good
fits a
at-
scenario. I will say that playing Doom
That's
was
the
one
one
of
that came
the
to my
first
mind, yeah.
time, the new Doom,
Yeah.
was one of the first times in a really long time that I just craved a super intense metal track for games. And I think Devil May Cry has something like that, but it's not like actual songs. Like it's just kind of this like
Killzone
like,
2
it's
is
sh-
Killzone 2 that zombie game. That one's got a pretty dope metal track.
or not Killzone, Killing Floor.
Killing Floor 2.
Killing
that
Floor
one's
2
got
has a sick. That's
some just-
like the
yeah.
epitome of to me. You know, like
Yeah.
you've got some like impending doom, and that's the funny thing with that game is like I remember seeing
It's
the
all
the
Christian
song-
metal.
It's like all
I
Christian.
think it's because it
you're
was
like,
cheaper to license.
Right, probably. But hey, dude, like you know,
Yeah.
you've got Demon Hunter coming on, and you're
Yeah.
like mowing down zombies. Like
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would love to see more games that utilize stylistic that really grab hold of stylistic stuff like that. Like I think Far Cry did that a little bit with kind of
Mhm.
having this weird Western infused hip hop vibe that they used in some of the trailers and then they used in some of the game music.
Yeah.
And Doom, like the Mick Gordon and that is a soundtrack that will get you pumped. Like the BFG song on that album is just unreal levels.
I started playing Doom like last week
Oh,
before I
it's
got
so
into
cool.
Gears,
Yeah.
and the music is just gnarly. You just feel so brutal, just
Yeah.
stomping demons' faces in with your.
But and that's the vibe is you know
Yeah.
like you're putting boots to butts and faces and it just you
boots
feel
to
it.
butts. You heard it here first.
Boots to booties, me boy. But oh dude, the BFG track when you later in the game when you actually get the BFG and like there's a couple waves that'll come in and it's just like mass chaos and it's so good. It's so good.
Dope. Yeah, I can't really think of anything. There's a soundtrack called "A Flame in the Flood," which was written by one of my favorite artists, Chuck Ragan, and he wrote it for a game called "A Flame in the Flood," which is I haven't
think I've
played it
heard
yet.
of
I
that,
have it on the
actually.
Switch, but I haven't played it yet because I'm not really into survival type games. But it's like a top-down isometric like survival game, and he wrote the music for that. It's like westerny,
Ooh,
so
that
I
sounds
love
tight.
that because
Yeah.
Chuck Ragan's one of my faves. So
nice.
but yeah, I can't really think of. I'm not that creative when it comes to pairing music with things.
For sure.
So yeah,
Next question. Well, I guess
I
next
think that's the
next
only
email.
question. Yeah, I don't know what did Josh's say.
I think it was more an episode request,
Yeah,
which
so
is coming, but we're probably gonna hold off until later in the year, based on
so his was basically like, can you kind of do a retrospective on Attack on Titan, basically?
Yep.
And I think we're gonna wait till season
after
3
season
is wrapped
3
up,
is done. Yes,
and so once that's done, we'll do a full on like. I'll probably rewatch
Deep-
season 1, 2, and 3,
yes,
and we'll do like a deep dive.
hardcore deep
So,
dive.
yeah.
Yep.
Because that's been a huge one for both of us getting
Yep.
into that genre.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, those were our 2 submissions for this week.
Thanks,
They
gents.
both won gift cards to Threadless, so get some merch and take some pics.
Some merch.
So yeah,
Tight.
let me get my notes back up here.
Yeah, man. We got a lot.
We
of
got
stuff
a lot
today.
to get through, but I think I'm pumped. So this has been fun so
For
far.
sure.
We'll do a quick pop culture update, and you can, when it's your turn, you throw in if you got anything cool for Christmas,
Sounds
throw that
good.
on the list as well.
Alrighty.
Because we haven't technically had an episode since Christmas, even though we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to start us off?
Will do. So one of the games I picked up via some gift card money and Christmas. So I guess it's kind of a Christmas gift, but I picked up Diablo 3 and I've been playing the crap out of that. So it is interesting because I think it's made me appreciate the loot genre a little more than I think I initially did.
Get that loot.
But I think it also made me realize and solidify some of my opinions of the loot game genre. I think the biggest thing that Diablo 3 has been doing for me that's been really fun is, yes, the goal is to chase the really crazy, hard to find, uber extra rare drops, but it felt like along the way, even after like 30 minutes or an hour, I could legitimately substantially see my power level increase and pay off. And I think thinking of other games that I've played that are more geared around loot shooters, especially like Destiny and The Division, it felt like it took forever to actually see the payoff for some of that stuff, and it wasn't as gradual, whereas I felt like with Diablo, it's like a gauntlet style, I think 3D,
it's like a dungeon crawler,
dungeon crawler
sort of.
And the goal is to just chain mobs of enemies and just beat the snot out of everything around you. And so it's fun because as you level up, you can just chuck through hundreds of dudes in seconds. But you can substantially see as you're getting stronger and getting a little bit better gear and a little bit better gear and a little bit better gear and little by little, all of a sudden it's like, okay, it went from, maybe 30 seconds to dispelling all these enemies to like 15. And now it's at like 10. And now I'm just like,
your power level.
You're just like flying through stuff. And so I think it made me realize, I think that's why I could never get into some of these the other ones, was it just felt like it took too long to feel rewarding. Not that it took too long, because once you got the dope stuff, you were like, frick, man, I am a boss. But it took too long to get there or to feel the little bit of like, okay, I'm feeling it. Like I'm feeling stronger, and I felt like it didn't carry on as quickly. And so it makes me a little hesitant about Anthem, but after watching some gameplay footage, I'm kind of hoping that
and I think that's the flip side to the loot thing. Like, cool, loot is cool, but like also the gameplay plays into it, because you got like third person shooting loots, first person shooting looters, isometric role playing game loot. Because even Diablo is more of a role playing game too, isn't it?
Yes, hardcore.
So it's got like, but it's also isometric. So if you're not into the whole isometric thing, and it varies. So
and it's cool. Like I didn't realize that Blizzard did this, because I actually bought it on launch when it first came out on like the 360 and the PC and stuff like that. So I have the 360 version, but when I played it,
flopped hardcore when it first came out.
Well, and the funny thing is because of the exact thing that I just described is exactly how it was when it first came out. It took forever to get anything and to feel strong at all, or to like,
and they had like a whole marketplace where you could buy stuff.
Oh, it's terrible. Whereas it's funny, like they basically 180'd super hard into now you feel stuff faster and quicker, and so now it's like, oh, I want to keep playing because I'm actually feeling the reward of grinding and doing all these missions and stuff. And and they have like a whole season system now where you can grind for seasonal gear, and there's like cool stuff, and you do like specific challenges, and the specific challenges get you stupid amounts of EXP and gold, but then you can do these other things that are also part of the challenges that get you stupid amounts of EXP and gold. You can carry all that into the campaign if you want to play through the story mode. So, as a result, if I want to play through the story, I can like fly through it now because I'm like level 55 or something, and it feels good. Like it feels like I want to go back and play it, and it doesn't feel like it's absolutely repetitive, but I think it's a repetitive that evolves.
I mean, it's a role playing game, so you're
exactly
kind of moving on and advancing.
Yep. Yeah,
that's cool.
So really digging Diablo 3 on the Switch. A lot of fun. Staying on games, I did receive Starlink for the Switch as well.
Is that the Fox?
It's like
Ubisoft one?
It's like the Ubisoft one.
Okay.
I think it is what No Man's Sky should have been. I think they bought too hard into the toy system, and I think that is where they're feeling some pain.
Starlink has?
Yes. Because they're the ones who had like the ships and the extra guns and stuff, and they're cool, don't get me wrong, but I haven't needed anything yet. Granted, I've only played it for like maybe 2 or 3 hours, but I think what's cool about it is, one, it's basically Ubisoft made the best Star Fox game, like flying Star Fox game there is right now. Just flat out, like they just did a really good job. So it's one of those things where like I'm super stoked because Ubisoft made a really great Star Fox game. The problem is that's not what they were trying to do, and I think for people who were just kind of looking at it as another Ubisoft title, they were just like, whatever, I don't really care. The only reason I bought it is because you can play as Fox and the whole Star Fox crew is involved, and you get this dope R-Wing thing. And if that wasn't involved, I would have no interest in this game at all. But it's fun. I've enjoyed it. I think it's definitely a world-building game. There's definitely kind of like, it's almost like a farm / resource simulator a la No Man's Sky mixed with, space dogfighting, and it's got a couple different elements in it that I think work really, really well and are.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I thought it was just like a rail shooter, like the old.
No, it's like free form. You can go from the planet and actually like boost and fly into space, and then like fly to other planets and stuff. And so it's cool. I really
is
like
that only on the Switch?
It's on everything.
Star
The Switch is
Fox
the only,
only on the
exact,
Switch.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you can find it I got it on Black Friday for like $35. If you can find it for that, I would say, and you're interested in flying like space fighting games, this is a must buy for like $35. I think if you're interested in that genre specifically, I do not think it was worth the $75 asking price out of the gate, just being frank. But
is that just the game, or that's with like the spaceship thingy?
So I got mine 35 with the spaceship.
Okay.
So I think you can only buy it in like starter bundles. I don't think you can buy
just
if you don't want all the toys and junk, you can get the digital.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the digital has been getting the discount. So that would be the only caveat there. But it's I've enjoyed it so far.
Cool.
Again, I think I'm bummed because I think it's a really cool title that deserved a little bit more love than it got. But I think it's mediocre in the sense that it doesn't do anything to like break the space flight, spaceship fighting genre. And I think as a result, it just kind of like went into the stream. So it's not a bad game by any means. I think it's pretty good, but I don't think
the price point.
I don't think everybody should try it. But I think if you specifically like Star Fox games or spacey type vibes, like if you've played No More Heroes, No Man's Sky, you will probably really, really like this, and maybe even like this better, just because there's an actual like fleshed out story and there's a little more lore and it's a little more interesting. And it's not just like randomly doing stuff for the sake of it. But that's my 2 cents there. So I also picked up the Fractured But Whole South Park on the Switch as well. And from what I've played so far, holy crud, that game is ridiculous. It's just it's so obnoxious. It's so unbelievably obnoxious in the best way. That's pretty much it. I haven't put enough time to really have an opinion. It's really deep for what it is. Like, I was genuinely surprised. Like, holy crud, this is actually...
I'm curious. I also got it on the Switch because it was like on sale at Best Buy. So I got the physical copy for like $20-some or something. Or maybe I got it at GameStop. I don't remember. But I'm excited to play it too.
Yeah, it's funny. It's such a... I love that Matt Parker and Trey Stone use this to troll video game players, and like there's a couple moments even in the beginning of the game that they totally troll you of like, oh, this dweeby character is completely changing the rules of the game, and Stan's like, you can't do that, and he's like, yes I can. So it's great. Love that. And then in Comics Land, actually, I read Gideon Falls, the first collection, so it's issues 1 through 6, and I think the second volume of that collection is coming out in April. Oh my gosh.
I still need to read that.
Dang, son. This comic is like, what?
I taste of Jeff Lemire,
don't
my
have
boy.
words, dude. It is unreal. It is stupid good. Oh my gosh. If you're not a comic fan, but you like horror stuff and like creepy stuff, this run is stupid good. It's just got like the art vibe is just so creepy in a way that just is it's so cool.
Yeah, I think it's
some of the pictures that they have.
Sorrentino, he's
the
super
artist
good
for that
artist.
is oh my goodness. He did
an
amazing
Lemire worked
job.
together on the Old Man Logan series run,
Nice.
and that was super good as
Nice.
well. But yeah, Gideon Falls. I read the first issue and like I was hooked immediately, but I just haven't bought it yet. So
yeah, just like the whole vibe of like the black barn and everything, and just how the narrative is unfolding right now, and some of the stuff that keeps happening, and some of the people that are involved. Like, it's so good. It's really, really, really good. It's awesome. So that's pretty much all I have on my list. Of course, there's like a couple other random smatterings of things here or there, but I want to get to the meat, so
Dope. Yeah.
go through it.
I'll run through mine pretty quick because I've done a lot, but not with super depth or anything. Well, I guess it depends how you define depth, but over break, I beat a couple of games. I beat Stick of Truth, which is the first game in the South Park series. I beat it on the Switch in handheld mode. Super fun. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, there's so many moments in there where you're like, I can't believe this is happening in a video game.
Right. You're
on
like,
the Nintendo
should
Switch.
I do this? Is this okay?
So, yeah, it's yeah. I really dug the RPG elements. It was actually pretty in depth with like the weapons you can get and the upgrades you can get and like
Cool.
the different skills and stats you could upgrade. And I'm curious to see how it translates into the next one because Obsidian did the first one, but they didn't do the second one. So I'm curious to see how the role-playing game stuff compares. I don't know who developed it, if it was just Ubisoft directly.
It could have been.
Maybe
I'm not
one
sure.
of their studios.
Yeah,
Because
probably.
Ubisoft published the first one as well, but they didn't
Sure.
develop it. So that game was super fun. I would not recommend it for people who are
Easily offended
by anything and don't like. I can't even explain it.
Just don't think too hard.
If you don't like South Park, don't play it.
just avoid it. Stay away.
Because this is like South Park on steroids.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I played Undertale.
Did you beat it?
Kind of.
Did you get one of the depressing endings? I haven't played it, but
I missed one thing to be able to do the pacifist run in like the second one because I played the whole game without killing anybody. But I missed one thing where you had to like get some water and give it to this person, and I like didn't realize I was supposed to do that until I backtracked and she was gone. I was like, okay, and I looked it up, and you literally there's no other way, and you can't just restart the game because it knows like it when you try and restart it knows, so like it changes your gameplay every time. So the only way to restart is to actually delete the entire save file and just completely restart. And I was like, I already put like 12 hours into this. I'm not restarting. So I just like gave up at the final boss, and I was like, I'm not playing this again.
That's fun.
Like, it was fun. I don't think I get it. I don't get the gimmick. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not into it. I don't know. I like the story. I like the gameplay mechanics and the fact that your choices actually matter and all that stuff. But it seems like it's a little bit too heavy on the your choices matter aspect, and it kind of feels restricting in the way that I can enjoy the game. So I just kind of gave up on it. Maybe I'll come back to it eventually, but
yeah, I've always been interested to play because I know that it's very heady. It's like a very poignant game. Like there's a lot it's trying to say.
Absolutely,
by the mechanics, which I think is cool. Like I don't think there's a lot of games that do that, and
Yeah.
I think the art style and some of the stuff that you can do and some of the stuff that I've seen other people do in it is just really funny and really interesting, and I really dig it.
The humor is on point, I would say. The storytelling is great. I think the gameplay itself is what stopped me.
I've seen that seems pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So.
And it wasn't super hard. There was a couple parts where I had to backtrack and train. Like I grinded for like an hour and a half in one part, but I think just the fact that I was not able to do like the pacifist run now without having to completely restart kind of bummed me out, because people had said like, oh, for your first gameplay, don't look up any guides, don't do anything, just play the game how you'd want to play it. But in my mind, if it's going to remember everything I do the second time, then it kind of ruins the experience, because like I'm just going to get some dumb neutral ending that I don't want to get.
Sure, right.
So I think I would recommend, if you're fine with spoilers, playing it with a guide if you want a certain playthrough, because you have to play it twice to get the full playthrough, and it's going to remember what you did the second time. So
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd recommend it to everybody. If you like SNES era role-playing game type things with like super heady material, then I would recommend it, but it's not just, I don't think it's for everybody.
Sure. When it's pretty short, right? Like you said.
Yeah, it wasn't super long. It maybe 10 hours I put into it and got to the final boss. So yeah, I played that. I don't want to be down on it because I know their fan base is like
super, yeah.
It's like the Rick and Morty. So
you just don't get it, Phil.
I think, yeah,
don't understand.
I'll admit it. I just don't get it. I don't know. So Super Smash Bros. I have to make a confession.
I cannot wait to hear this.
So I played it in handheld mode, and
like a fool.
Yeah, I mean it was fun, and it was all right. I think it took me a long time to get used to it, because like I would be pressing Y when I meant to press B, because the buttons are all in different places than you're used to playing with the GameCube. But I unlocked all of the characters just playing in handheld mode. Between Evan and I, we like swapped back and forth playing it with each other. But it's really fun. Like, I kind of like take back my frustration with the fact that it took so long to unlock characters, because like now that I unlocked them all, I'm like, now what do I do? Like, the only thing to do now is to try and get high scores in like classic mode or play World of Light, which I don't know if I ever will because I'm not that interested in it. But like unlocking the characters and having to fight and get better with different characters was actually kind of fun. So I enjoyed the game. But my confession is that the GameCube controller is the best way to play Super Smash Bros. But that's the only concession I will make. There's no other game where I will admit that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great day for mankind. Let me just say, I can't believe that those words are coming from this man's mouth after all the flack and the pushback. And
but
here he is.
I also haven't tried playing with the Pro Controller yet, but
That's
I would
fair.
assume the experience is similar. I think like the handheld mode with the Joy-Cons, the buttons aren't like jumpy enough like the GameCube controllers are.
Yeah.
So like your feedback is kind of off.
Yep.
It's weird. But I'm excited to play again with all of you guys because I've gotten pretty good, I think.
Oh boy.
Playing with some characters, so yeah.
I will have to do when that boy young Zach is back, we'll have to bring him in.
You need somebody to
test
humble
his
me.
chops.
That's what you need.
Yes, we do. And he will be the man to do it.
So yeah, that game has been fun. I played and beat Detroit Become Human. That was one of my Christmas gifts.
I'm curious, and obviously, like, we're trying to move, but I am really curious because I know that game got a lot of heat for it.
I think the heat comes from two places, from what I can tell. One, people don't like the developer or like the designer.
He's kind
I
of a
forget his name.
scumbag. Yeah,
He's just like pretentious, and he kind of thinks what he's doing is high art for some reason. And I'm just like, and most people are like, you're just a guy who wants to make movies that doesn't make movies. You just make games, sort of thing. I think that's part of it. And then the second part, I think, is the political implications of the narratives, which are there. And I mean, I don't know. It's kind of your standard android's life sort of things, and there's a lot of like revolutionary ideas, and we demand life and we demand freedom and liberty, and obviously there's a lot of parallels in the story to like real life events, and so I can see where people would be offended by it. Sure. I'm not saying I understand why they're offended by it, but I'm saying I can see where they're coming from. I just don't think it's as heavy-handed.
Sure.
I don't like. Just don't read into it. Is my opinion. It's kind of just like it's about androids trying to like grapple with the fact that like they're gaining consciousness and like they're realizing, oh frick, we're being enslaved by humanity, and like naturally out of that, obviously you're going to get revolutions and different things. And I don't know. I think it's a good game. It was interesting. Again, same with the Undertale thing, I don't get it. Because along with all of the hate it's also gotten a lot of praise from a lot of people. Like, it's been on top 10 lists, and some people even put it as their number one game. And I'm like, I don't know how you can put this game above like God of War or Red Dead, even Spider-Man. Like, I don't know. It feels more like a movie than a game. Because like most of the gameplay is just fight scenes. You just circle, X, circle, X. So I don't know. It was interesting. The story's fun, and I do like that. Like, you could probably play it like 20 times and never experience the same thing as long as you're making different decisions. Sure. And there's a lot of things I didn't experience because I chose certain things, and I have a really hard time being a D-bag in video games. So
I hear that.
So yeah, that game was fun.
Cool.
Just to keep it moving, Gears of War I started playing, which we've already noted. Doom I played a little bit. I probably won't play the whole thing. I just wanted to kind of experience it, and maybe I'll come back to it. We'll see.
I'm actually pretty excited for is it Extinction, or what's the new one that's coming out?
I want to say it's Infinite.
I don't think so. I really hope not. I'm pretty sure.
Or is it Annihilation? I'm looking it up.
Doom
Eternal. Doom Eternal.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I knew
it was something about
Doom Annihilation.
I could see it.
Can that please be the third game? Like Doom Eternal, Doom Annihilation. That would be incredible.
Doom Guy destroys the entire world.
Doom Guy destroys
including himself.
Everything.
The only man who can kill himself.
It's true. What do you do when you're your own worst enemy?
Yeah.
Great take.
So yeah, I started playing that, which is a wild ride.
Nice.
And then the last thing is a comic as well. I've been reading an Abe Sapien comic, which is tied to the Hellboy universe. So.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And here we go.
Here we go.
The big
I just want to throw out there that
Oh.
Punisher season 2
Yeah.
comes out
PSA.
January 28th or 18th. So
Nice.
get ready for
PSA.
it, and also get ready for the subsequent cancellation. Prepare your hearts, people.
Prepare your hearts. Prepare your minds.
So yeah,
Here we go.
Aquaman. What do
Dude.
you think? What did you think?
What did you think? Here
For some
is
context, as of January 2nd, it has a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah.
I think our opinion is actually more favorable than that.
I agree.
Yeah,
Not by much,
not
but
by
a little
much,
bit.
but
I'm gonna go back to my notes in a second, but I want to like channel what my initial impression
channel
was.
what you felt when you were sitting
during
in
that whole
chair
movie.
at the end.
I was so unexcited for this movie. It was unreal. I just was like,
Yep.
it's gonna be mediocre. I can't wait to trash it. It's gonna be, and not because I get kicks out of trashing stuff, but it's this was gonna be the next example of DC needs to just stop, and it was the exact opposite. I mean, and it's so weird, and I would love to look at the directors and the people, the leadership involved in Wonder Woman and Aquaman versus Superman or Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and even like Justice League. I don't know who
it's
directed
interesting
Justice League.
because that was a mess because it was half Zack Snyder and half Joss Whedon.
Oh
so
jeez, it was. Ugh.
I think I feel like Zack Snyder gets a lot of praise in the comic book world, but I feel like he's the reason that those movies failed.
Yeah, and because
I think his vision is just too convoluted, or he was trying to do too much.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe that's DC's fault. Maybe they were at the
Right.
beginning. Maybe they were doing a little heavy-handed, and then they realized they were failing, and they're like, "All right, James Wan, just make a good movie so we can get out of this." muck."
like literally just
Yeah.
don't make it bad.
Yeah,
And honestly, dude, like it has flaws. It has moments that are really corny and kind of like, oh geez, but
yeah.
for all of those, there were triple, if not quadruply more. Quadruply? We're just all
Quadruply.
with the
We're-
fake words today.
yeah.
Grapple,
2019, baby, we're making up words now.
yeah, buddy. But it was like, it was just a fun ride. Like James Wan did an amazing job with this movie. Like
it felt like a comic book movie.
exactly. It was
Which
like
DC
it was
hasn't been able
it
to
was
capture.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
And maybe this is the thing is like, I think of the Christopher Nolan Batmans, and I think it's when I'm looking at some of these new movies that are coming out and other movies, they have these like horribly obvious identity crises if we don't know what we're trying to do. The Christopher Nolan Batmans were trying to be they were philosophically driven movies. Like it's around Batman. But if you look at each of those films, they are very deeply ingrained in some kind of philosophical.
Christopher Nolan knew exactly what he was doing.
Exactly.
Third one had a little bit of things.
Yeah, and
but even then, that was still better than anything.
right,
that
exactly.
DC
That
has done
Man of
since.
and I think with like Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Justice League, and we've trashed on them, but
Yeah.
just to hold them to other things. I think when I look at what those movies didn't do is that they just didn't know what they were. Like they didn't know what they were trying to do. They had no plan. They needed to make a Superman movie, and this is what we were going to do with it. Whereas it felt like with Aquaman, they let James Wan just kind of like make a fun movie, like just make a good movie. And I think the funny thing too is of all the characters that I would have said would never be the hope for DC to actually be coming back, it would have been the Aquaman movie. Like I've been saying that since they announced that there was an Aquaman movie. I was like, this is gonna suck. It's gonna be the funniest thing in the world. It's gonna be so bad, and like, my goodness, if it didn't make me want to become a fan. Like that was kind of like what I walked away from was, if this is what Aquaman could be, they totally took his character and they made it interesting. And I think that's exactly what they did with Wonder Woman. And I think if they can learn to keep doing that and to do that really well and to really lean into making these superheroes that they have in their catalog interesting, we could be in for a really fun ride going forward. So I guess we have details and stuff, but I'm curious like what you were thinking too.
Yeah, I pretty much express the same sentiments, coming with the caveat that I tend to be a DC fan. Like when I first saw Man of Steel, I liked it. I liked Batman vs Superman. I liked Justice League, so I'm kind of like easy to please in that regard. But this movie, man, like I had more fun, even more fun than Wonder Woman in some parts. Like this movie was just fun. It was a blast to watch. It was visually impressive. Like the whole thing was just insane. Like some of those fights and stuff was just nuts. I was like, oh my gosh, like DC's they're pulling this off. Like it's still not on the level of Marvel, which I don't know if they'll ever get there, but like this is like showing promise. Like I actually was, when I finished this movie, I was pumped. I was like, dude, DC kind of hit something. So I'm excited for Shazam coming up. So
yeah, this made me, and we kind of, I think we said that with when we did our Shazam episode, where Shazam looked good and I'm interesting, and I think because the concept of who Shazam is interesting, and so I think naturally I was more piqued in interest for that. I was not for Aquaman because to me, in my mind, Jason Momoa, when he showed up in Justice League, I was like, he is not good. Like he is why is he playing
he's basically
Aquaman?
Thor.
Yeah, he's like he's Thor,
they're trying to
but
get like
from the ocean, and which is infinitely worse. But it just makes me really, really, really think that the people who were helming the previous movies did not know what they were doing and just did not have good direction, because coming out of this movie
had tighter like
that could have been
restrictions
too.
on it, because they're like, we need to be Marvel, and they're like, oh frick, we're failing. Okay, we're taking the reins off now. Like, just make good movies.
Right.
And it seems like that's kind of what's happening after Wonder Woman. They finally realized, like,
just let him run.
So
And
Justice League was kind of the last ditch effort to get something out, and the directors kind of got split on that one. And so I think this is a little bit of hope for the future.
Yeah,
hopefully.
and Jason Momoa in this movie in Aquaman was really good.
Yep.
I was not expecting a lot from him considering Justice League, but again, it just makes me think that he wasn't. I don't know how much it was his fault in Justice League.
I think the writing was just
like
bad.
via watching Aquaman. I'm like, they just had some bad directors in there, because like in Aquaman, I was like, I really like his character. Like he's still the brutish, like muscle guy, but they weren't trying to make him Thor. He had an interesting backstory in life, how he was living and what he was doing, and his purpose for not, wanting to go back to Atlantis was interesting. When he goes back to Atlantis and he's, bantering with his, his brother or whatever, his half brother. I don't know what the technical identification would be, but whatever. Doesn't matter. He was great. He was genuinely great. The jokes that he was throwing out were landing. They weren't like that weird, uncomfortable, like, why did you say that? Like, did they make you say that? That sucks, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it felt natural. He felt like naturally he was supposed to be Aquaman. And
his character felt good and consistent.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. So that made me really excited.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a big list of things to point to of my favorite moments, but if there's any that you want to start us off with first.
Yeah, I don't know if you can throw the spoiler tag, I guess, in the... Am I getting too
Spoilers.
close again?
What?
Am I getting too
No,
close
you're
again? Good. Okay. I'm trying to think of specific moments, because maybe I'll start with a negative and then we can end on the positive, because
I think that's a good point.
Keep it posy. The things I didn't like about the movie were... I didn't believe his backstory. Like, the love story between his dad and mom just didn't make sense. Like, you fell in love so fast and got married and had a kid, and like, maybe the time span was off. I don't know, but I think I understood what they were trying to do, and it kind of was like Batman vs Superman, where like you can kind of see what they're trying to do, and it's not quite hitting in the same way. So I didn't fully believe that story. It wasn't like believable to me.
I will say, I totally bought into the sentiment of like, yeah, my dad still goes out to the dock after every.
Yeah,
like, I was like, I dig it.
No, I think like the overall sentiment behind it, I bought into that, but I think the time
actual
frame,
execution,
I didn't buy into the time frame. Like,
I think it was too quick.
It was too quick.
Too much
information.
information.
Saves her from the beach, has a kid. I'm like, the frick? Like, how did you make that happen so fast?
Right. Hey, man,
she's like
Atlantis,
the princess
dude.
of the sea. Like, how did she just fall in love with a lighthouse keeper? So that was almost felt a little bit too heavy-handed.
Yeah.
So there's that. I'm trying to think of other things. Like, some of the jokes felt a little off to me, but I can't recall which ones were. But most of them felt good. I feel like that's the only thing I had a major gripe about.
Yeah,
I think the movie was really long, and I saw you had that in your notes
I was
too.
gonna say that. I was just gonna
It's
say
a little
that was
long.
that was my biggest, and not even that it was long. It just felt long, and
yeah.
And I guess there's a stigma with saying that of like, oh, well, there was, boring parts. But I think there is a lot that happens. And I think with movies, you can kind of sense when it's coming to a close. And I think with this one, I was like, they're opening another story. Like, they're opening up another road that they have to go down. And so I felt like there were all the signals that were getting sent is it wasn't like oh, we close this road. Oh, that leads to all these consequences, and we got to solve those. It was just kind of like, hey, we're going down to here, and okay, hey, now we got to go do this, and no, there's this other thing over here, and hey, now we're in the desert, and hey, it was just like
there's a lot going on.
One after the other, after the other, after the other.
And I think all of the individual storylines worked, but I
Mhm.
think it would have worked better if there had been less
Just
or more
scale it down.
tightly scaled down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of
But-
the stuff wasn't necessary to spend a
Yeah.
lot of time on. Like, I think when they went to, like, that tomb or whatever, like the underground thing when they were in the
Yeah,
desert.
that didn't even do anything
like,
really.
I-
Like they
it
just put
just
the thing in,
was-
got the message, and got out. I'm like, you could have just skipped that probably.
Yeah, like, could they have just found it somewhere earlier? And granted, I don't want to dive too hard into, like, playing with the story elements, but there were too many roads that were open.
I think
that
the
kept getting
overarching
open.
sentiment is that it was a little long.
Yes.
And there might have been a little bit too much in the way of story.
Definitely.
Or a little bit sporadic, like it couldn't fully decide which story it was doing.
Yes, I agree.
But other than that, I don't know. I don't have a ton of complaints, but maybe you have more specific ones than I do because I tend to be on the favorable side.
No, I mean, and I think that's why I was so pleasantly surprised with it
Mhm.
is, and I think that's the thing is, I know I get poked at a lot by my family of like, oh, you just hate everything and we got to convince you to like stuff. And honestly, that's not true. There are certain things that when they appear in movies and they appear multiple times in movies, I will not forgive them. So like with Venom, some of the stuff that was happening in those movies, I was like, this is a bad movie because this thing has happened like 5 times and that's inexcusable. Whereas with Aquaman, it felt like, yeah, there was, I would say the same thing about Wonder Woman. It's like, yeah, there's still like, I believe in
Then I
love.
will destroy
Yeah,
you.
and I mean, like, classic return to joke. Like, it just, there are definitely those moments where it's like, okay, now we're getting a little corny.
Yeah.
But it didn't sit in that. Like, it, where, like, Batman versus Superman, I was laughing constantly at how corny some of the stuff, and it was, again, it was one of those things where it was like these kinds of moments that are ripping me out of everything that's happening are happening again and again and again and again. That to me says this is a bad, unplanned movie. Whereas with Aquaman, it felt like there were not enough moments that really, really set me out or just pulled me out of everything that made me feel like, oh, this is not a good movie. Whereas, Venom recently, again, that's kind of the case study that I would use to compare the two. That one, it just felt like there were constant moments where I was like, you lost me. Like,
Yeah.
this is just a little too ridiculous. But it was just a fun ride. And I think putting it in, like, the Rotten Tomatoes vibe of, actually giving it a number, I would say probably for me it's like a 70. It's like a solid 70.
I think I'd give it an 80, but because I said 8 out of 10 in my
Yeah.
thing. At least that was my initial impression.
Sure.
'Cause
Yeah.
there were so many things about it that just were dope, but
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is it's to me it's right now I think it's probably still sitting at a 64. It's a solid 70 if you're not as critical. It's like an 80.
Yeah.
And I think because there's definitely substantial things that knock it down those points,
oh yeah,
but those things aren't frequent enough to
make it actually
ruin
rotten.
right exactly to make it like a bad
Yeah.
movie. But jumping into the stuff that we loved, because there was a lot that stood out to me that was really, really cool. I wish they did it more in the movie, and I'm kind of bummed because I was kind of overhyped. It's the first time it happened. But the opening fight scene with his mom in the beginning when she's in the living room, and I think it was CG. I'm not sure, but that was one of those moments where I was like, yes, I can see the fighting. Like, I can see the action happening. Thank God. That opening fight scene was tight.
Yeah.
Like, that
Dude,
was
pretty
cool.
much every fight scene in this movie was just
They felt different. Like,
yeah.
they felt more, and I don't know if it was, and I felt like part of it was they just let you watch it. Like,
Yep.
they position, and I've said similar things about Kingsman in those movies, is they didn't have the exact same technique, but they just let you watch more of the critical action and the cool stuff, and, like, some of the fighting in Atlantis and, things like that. It just was like, this is cool. Like, this is cool getting to see this stuff go down versus being chucked around the screen in the space, and just kind of like, okay, Batman's over here, now Superman's over here, now they're underground, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's just like, just too much going on.
yeah.
But I felt like they let the scenes breathe more, and as a result of it, they just, like, it just was fun. It was
Yeah.
fun to watch, and the
Yep.
fight scenes didn't feel dragged out or like, oh my gosh, if he punches him in the face another time the exact same way, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, another scene that I loved was in Italy, I think, was where they were when the Black Manta came in.
yeah,
when
dude.
they were running on the rooftops
Yup,
and like
that
and
was
they
a
were just
great
getting
shot.
tossed and like he would just get thrown like just the hundreds of feet over buildings and land into like a car like
Yeah.
and it was so dope. And like there was one scene where Mira's like running and like he blows the roof under her feet and she just does like a triple forward flip like onto a building and you're like, oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, like they let you watch the whole scene and they let you see like things actually play out. It was so fun,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. It was just a fun ride.
Mhm.
I am super bummed that you missed the coolest scene in the whole movie.
Freaking Mountain Dew.
Friggin' Mountain Dew, dude. Come on. But and this will kind of play into what I think is my biggest compliment of this movie, but my favorite sequence in the whole movie, and I think it's because it was so out of nowhere, is via the storyline, they're trying to go find the scepter of some Atlantean dude. I don't remember the names. I'm sure it was just like,
I think his name was like,
I almost
I
said
don't
Leonidas. I'm like, it sounds right.
it was
definitely
basically
not.
the Excalibur. 'Cause
Yeah, it was like,
King
you know,
Arthur, like,
the ocean version of Excalibur,
Yeah.
essentially. I don't remember the names. But they're taking this, you know, junky fishing boat out into the, you know, to go find it, and they're following whatever. And it's dark, it's stormy, it's raining, it looks like it's like midnight, and, you know, they're kind of out in the ocean, and I'm like, okay, they're going to find it, and they're going to go underwater. And all of a sudden, this movie just kicks into a full-on, like, horror flick, and it was, like, just well done. Like, it, and I say horror flick in the sense that it just all of a sudden went from this, like, yay, superheroes, yeah, we're, you know, like, getting tossed into buildings and fighting bad guys, to, like, creepy monsters swarming this ship in pitch black night, and like jump cuts and jump scares and like horror vibes and like just, you know, frantic stuff, these things pounding on the windows, and it went from 0 to creepy so fast that it just the jump scare that jumped into that moment was like genuinely caught me off guard, and I was not ready for it. But it was so dope. And I think you might have walked in right as this was happening.
I watched as the red part was going down.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite shot in the whole movie.
That's dope.
And specifically because it just was like, it would have been so easy for them to have this like 10-minute, 20-minute fight scene on this boat. And like, I think we stopped them. Okay, now we're going to go underwater. But via the situation, they just dive in, and they have this sweet shot after they've kind of fought a bunch of these dudes, and they found out, like, you know, okay, flares, they're not too keen on those. They jump in, and it's Mira and Arthur, I think is Aquaman.
Yeah.
They jump in, and they're diving, and right as they dive, the camera pans out, and Arthur's holding a flare that's like this glowing red light, and all the water is pitch black except for this little red circle. And all of a sudden, like, lightning flashes, and the water's illuminated, and you just see like thousands of these fish things that they were just fighting, like, everywhere. Like, and it was just like, oh, that's so creepy and gross. But it was just moments like that it was like they didn't take the easy route. They did things like that were unnatural and unnormal to the genre of superhero stuff, and they just let it happen, and it was cool, and I think it was for the better.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm ranting too much, but
no, you're good.
I think the compliment that came out of that was this movie had a lot of different settings, and I think that could have felt, and I think in other movies that DC has done, that has felt very, 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 very disorienting. I think Justice League did a really bad job of that. You know, like they're in the Amazon, and then all of a sudden they're in New York City, and then they're here, and then they're, you know, in Russia, and like it's like disorienting because you're like, where are we now? Like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
But I felt like this movie just paced the transitions super well, and it felt like how the movie was shot and flowed and what they spent their time on changed each setting that they were in. And I think that's what made it feel great, was like, you know, that when they're running on the roofs in Italy, I think is where they are, they shoot it almost. It feels like completely different. Like it almost feels like they shot it differently.
It felt like an adventure film.
Yeah,
like,
and so it turns into like an Indiana Jones film, and just
Yeah.
how it's shot and what they do. But when they're in Atlantis, it's like a hardcore sci-fi, CGI
Basically Star
flick.
Wars,
Yeah, it's like a Star Wars vibe.
underwater.
But then when they're, in underwater and they're in the deep, it's like it turns into this like horror, creepy,
Yeah.
10,000 Leagues Under the Sea vibe, and it just they changed everything to fit the vibe of where they
Yeah.
were, and I think that's what made this a distinct standout from
Yeah.
the
And
other
I think
DC
the thing
films.
that I liked about all of those separate things coming from the technical perspective is like the lore that they built behind all of this stuff. Like
Definitely.
each of the different kingdoms that was like at war at one point, and they kind of like built a story into it. So when you got to those places, you're like, oh, okay, this is that place. And then when they're in Italy, they finally meet this guy that they've been kind of inferring about, the Black Manta or whatever.
Yep.
And it was like the payoff was always there, because like, oh, now we're going to the trench. I remember them talking about that. That sounded creepy, and like
Yep.
different things like that. And it kind of like had that payoff based on like the lore that they had constructed. So
Definitely.
yeah.
For sure.
And I'm trying to remember when things happened, but that there was that huge underwater fight scene where
Oh,
it's
at
like
the end?
that giant lava monster
That
comes
was
out,
so dope.
and I'm like, dude, this is like a space movie but underwater. Like
Yeah.
it literally felt like a giant like Star Wars battle like happening underwater. I'm like, this is one of the most epic things I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah,
Like,
it was
that
pretty
was
cool.
so gnarly.
Yeah.
And then even in that, like all the fight scenes that they transitioned to, like they showed like little different things. It was so fun to watch. So.
Yeah.
And then the last part when he gets the trident and he like, actually I think that happened before, but I'm getting the timing off. But when he like comes out of the water with the trident and he just like, and he like pauses for a second and the sun's behind him, I'm like, dude.
You're like, dude. Yeah,
and then
that's
him
exactly.
versus his brother.
Yeah.
And like, that was that fight.
And it was a
scene
great
just
fight.
sick.
Like it was a good
yeah.
fight.
And then he
So-
actually like shows him mercy, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. And I think that's what I appreciated of the main character growth. And this again, what they did well is they made Arthur grow. And it wasn't, again, like just like in Wonder Woman, it wasn't this crazy earth-shattering, my whole life is a lie and I need to restructure everything. It was just a subtle, I am not a king. And I think that was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie from a writing standpoint was I think he's talking to, was it Mira or his mom or...
Yeah, I don't
No,
remember.
it might have been his dad. I can't remember. Arthur's talking to somebody important in his decision to become the king of Atlantis, and he says, I am a blunt object, and I am a good one. I don't think about what I do. I am just a force to be reckoned with. That is not a king. A king is like, mannered and controlled and all this stuff. Like, he basically is like, I'm a beast, and I know I'm a beast,
Yeah.
and I'm a very good beast,
Yeah.
but I'm not this thing that you want me to be. And like, that was one of those moments of like, that was good. I like that
Yep.
they've this whole time they've been leaning into that, where it's not like, well, I don't want to be king because it sounds like it sucks and it's boring. It's just like, no, I like beating people up. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound very kingly. But it just felt like there was that added depth that was prevalent in Wonder Woman that I think they put in this. And so, we're already pushing an hour 10 at this point, but and we haven't even gotten to Spider-Man. But
Finish this up and jump into Spider-Man.
sounds good.
My
would
last
you
thought is-
recommend?
Or what?
Go for it. and
I was
I'll
gonna
ask
say my
question.
last thought is I loved the suits in this movie.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
all of the like his brother's suit
Yep.
and his suit and the Black Manta, like everything just looked
was
amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
It was cool.
So
My last question was going to be, and this kind of, I guess, a general closeout. Is it worth seeing in the theaters?
oh yeah.
Okay.
I would say it's worth seeing in the theaters, and I'm definitely buying it on Blu-ray and watching
100%.
it again. I need
Yep.
to watch it again to kind of get things I
agree.
missed. So
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah, that is my sentiment, and I'm very this made me excited for future DC projects, and I
was
really hope that
afraid
they
for
keep
this
it.
one. Like I posted about it the day after we saw it. I was like, if you have any hesitations about DC, like you need to go see this movie. I do not want this movie to fail.
Yeah,
And it's not failing. It
Good.
beat Wonder Woman
Yeah.
already worldwide.
Yep.
So I think it actually beat one of the Dark Knight Rises. I think Dark Knight Rises, it beat that like worldwide
cool.
gross. So
I'm stoked for
It's
it.
reaching $1 billion, I think.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah,
it's-
which is
I think people are resonating with it.
which is
in a
good,
way,
and
yeah.
I think they deserve it, and I think James Wan deserves it, and I think Momoa deserves it, and I think what they allowed them to do with this movie versus what it seems that they were trying to do with the other ones is getting me excited to see what they do in the future.
Yep.
So I really hope that they just let these creators create. And I
Take
think
off the restraints a little bit.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
100%.
go
so
see
that's
it.
Aquaman.
Go see it in
theaters.
If you can't see it in theaters, get it on DVD or
yes,
rent it
it is,
on Amazon.
It's worth the money however you decide to spend it.
Absolutely.
So.
Last but not least.
Oh, dude.
Unfortunately, we didn't leave a lot of time for this one.
That's,
we'll go until we're done.
Oh my goodness.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This
Holy
was something else.
Frick.
I remember watching this thinking like there's so many moments where I'm like, dude, Josh is gonna die when he sees this movie. This is the dream Spider-Man film.
100%.
It made me. My first thought is it made me realize that Spider-Man works way better with animation.
Yeah,
because they can do so much more. His movements look so sick and just gosh,
it's
yeah.
oh gosh.
So I'm curious because you're like a huge Spidey fan.
Yes.
I mean, I got your text, so I kind of got a feeling for what
Dude.
your thoughts were. But like,
Yeah.
what were your initial impressions seeing this movie and coming out of the
man.
theater afterwards?
Also,
did you see this over break?
I did. I saw
Gloria
it
see
over
with
Christmas.
you?
I took my whole family. So
Yeah, you
literally,
did.
I took my aunt and my uncle, my 2 younger cousins, my mom, my dad, my grandma, 2 of my other cousins, Gloria. I took the whole fam. I was like, I want to go
Like
see
a
Spider-Man.
Spidey
Y'all want to come?
evangelist.
They were like, yeah, I'll go see it.
That's
Every
great.
single one of them, every single one walking out of the theater was like, that was awesome. Like that was just like, they were just like, that was cool. Like that was really cool. Oh, dude.
Also, this one's sitting at a clean 97, I think.
Yes, it is.
On Rotten Tomatoes.
And
so.
oh my gosh, I like don't know where to start, and it's gonna be funny because it's gonna be my like geek out, just like, dude, this movie. Ooh, dare I say it? This may be, in my opinion, the best animated movie I've seen ever. I say it with
honestly feel like I could agree with you.
I hesitate a little bit because there might be something I'm forgetting that I'm like, no, that was pretty good.
What would even be a contender? I don't know.
Kubo,
like Pixar.
Kubo was a pretty amazing animated
Kubo?
movie, but that was stop motion.
Oh, okay.
That might be the most amazing stop motion animated movie. I don't know if I can think of anything off the top of my head.
I don't even know if it's fair to compare this to other ones.
No,
because like this is the first time this sort of animation has been done. I feel like,
and it was incredible.
Yeah.
It just flat out. It was just an incredible movie, and I think it like everything was there. And I think that was the thing, is this could have been like it was part art piece and just how they did the animation, and because I think they edited it on. There's different frame rates, and I think they did it on 2s. So instead of doing 1 frame for 24 frames per second, they did 12 frames per second, that's why if you see the trailers, it's kind of choppy.
Yep.
That's the effect. It's there's fewer things giving smoother.
I think
motion.
Because I watched the Imperious, they did their thing, and they said even there's sometimes where they actually skip frames intentionally.
Yep.
So it almost feels even more choppy.
Exactly.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, and so
I think it makes it feel more like a comic book.
Exactly.
In that
So
regard.
I read a coworker sent me an article that they interviewed some of the art designers and the director and stuff like that, and they were talking about it, and they said that their goal was, how do we channel a comic, and not just the vibe and the colors and all that stuff, but perspective wise, art wise, direction wise, motion wise, like what would a comic look like in motion? And he said one of the things is, when you look at a single panel of a comic, what makes them so special is it's not just like a dude, sometimes it is like a dude just like staring into you, but for a lot of the action oriented ones, when you look at a single panel, there's technically like 1 to 2 seconds of action that is being telegraphed to you, that you are being told. And so how do you see that? How do you see all the stuff leading up to that moment? And then how do you cut to the next panel, see all that? And it's just how they described it. It was like, this movie was made by people who care about art and care about making movies and film and cartoons and stuff as like an art and as something that is deep and complicated and requires a lot of effort and all this stuff, and it just it shines so intensely.
Yeah, like thinking about the movie, I honestly cannot think of anything that I didn't like.
It's
like, I don't know. Like I came out of that movie thinking like I have experienced something that I will probably never experience again.
Yeah,
like
it was one of those.
This was like lightning in a bottle. Like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and that was another one where I'm like, I'm afraid people are going to miss out on this because it's animated and because it's just another Spider-Man film.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, this is the best Spider-Man film in my
hands
opinion.
down.
Like
hands down.
This just kills all of the other
Yep.
ones.
It does. It does.
It's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't even know what to say.
I know that's what I was like, what do I say? What do you
say
say
when everything is amazing? Yeah.
So I guess to go into specifics. So one of the things that I thought was really, really, really awesome about this movie is that it was not a Peter Parker origin story focused film, and it was completely on Miles Morales. And Miles might be my favorite Spider-Man after this. Like, I think it made me want to go and read the comics so bad. Like, I think...
Yeah, I put in for the Ultimate Spider-Man collection on the library website afterwards. So.
Dope. Yeah.
And I've never been a Spider-Man person. Like, I've just never thought it was very interesting. And this movie was like, dude, Spider-Man's cool.
Yeah. And I think what it was is that Miles was just a new... I love the challenges that he had to face. And I felt like what was so cool about it is... with like Peter Parker, it's like, oh, I lost my uncle, and what am I gonna do? I gotta get a job, and it's very adult oriented. Mm-hmm. And what was so awesome is that Miles, and I think Zach actually said this when he was kind of giving a review a long, long time ago when we were talking about
of the comic.
The comic is that Miles' story is really about growing up way too quickly and having to take on a mantle that he is not ready for, and the way they channeled it in this movie and the story set pieces that were present just made it feel so whole. Like, there was just so much depth and so much emotion, but it wasn't cheap and it wasn't synthetic and it didn't feel fake. Like, it was earned. Every moment was earned. And I think that is continuously something that feels like it's diminishing by the second in film and in art and stuff, where it's just like, this person died, you should feel sad. And it's like, sorry, I don't. Like, it's kind of like a bummer. But this is spoiler free. I'll jump into the spoiler stuff now specifically. So one of the things I think that made this really good is, so Kingpin, interestingly enough, is the main villain.
That threw me for a loop.
That really was like, whoa, that's interesting. But just like in the Daredevil one, they made him interesting, and they made even just I think his like story of why he's doing the multiverse connecting thing is only like 15 seconds. Like, it's like a 15-second flashback in the entire movie, and it explains everything, and immediately you're like, this is heavy. Like, what he's doing is like,
frick, I kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah, you're like, I understand your obsession with this, and you're still a giant douche, and literally a giant.
I loved his visual presentation.
Yes.
Like, he just felt so domineering.
Yeah, and just how imposing he was. But his whole reason for doing the multiverse in his son and Vanessa dying in a car accident after watching him about to kill Spider-Man the first time, and they like leave and they're like, we're leaving you, and they like die in a car accident, and so he's trying to reconnect all the multiverses so he can bring a new multiverse son and Vanessa to him. And I was like, first off, that's dope, because that creates a very believable catalyst for all these other Spider-Mans being launched into this movie.
Yeah. But it's like believable, but it's in the same moment you're like, you feel bad for him because you know that's a hopeless pursuit. Like, what are
something's gonna happen?
These two random people you bring in, like, they're not gonna agree with what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably gonna be the same thing. It's just, it's not going anywhere good. And then just every Spider-Man that they brought in had their own depth, had their own personality and character. I really want a Penny Parker standalone, because that would be super tight with like the Spider-Man mech thing. That just seems dope. Spider-Gwen was awesome. I loved the noir Spidey. It made me want to dive into that. Yeah. I love the like washed up fat Peter Parker vibe of the other guy.
Yep.
It just, this was probably my favorite part of the whole movie that was so freaking tight, was the like, here's Spider-Man, here's my story, here's all this stuff I did, here's all these things that happened, and just how they did that for each one. And like that when they did that for Miles, like, just gave me the biggest grin. Like, I just had the like the most like stupid, obnoxious smile on my face. I'm like, that's so awesome. Like, I love that he now officially has a mantle and has a back. Like, this movie was basically building his backstory, and then at the end they're like, now we can do this for Miles Morales going forward. Now Miles gets to be one of the Spider-Mans who's like, yeah, here's my story, like the flipping thing, like he's earned it. And it was just like, oh, I love that. I love that so freaking much.
Yeah, I loved all of the intro things, and I didn't think they were going to do that, like the backstories.
Yeah.
But the way they did it was just so funny and hilarious. And like the first one with Peter Parker, when they did the little dancing scene, like I laughed
that
out
was
loud.
So good.
I was like, I can't believe
That
you
was
just
so
acknowledged
good.
that. Let's go.
Yeah.
So
He's like, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, I love how like the movie understands what it is, like
Yeah.
that it's a Spider-Man movie, and it
Yep.
like pushes beyond that and past it, but understand like the movie truly understands who Spider-Man is, I feel like.
100%.
And I mean, I'm not a huge Spider-Man guy, but it just felt like they got it. Like it felt like they got who this character is
Yep.
supposed to be, and
they
just
every
executed
single
it so well.
Yes, every single one was quippy, every single one was funny, but it wasn't like every single Spider-Man jokes about things in this way every single time. It was like Miles had his own awkward sense of, early high school humor, and old Peter Parker is like flippant about the stuff that he says, and he's like, I don't want kids, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And like the Nick Cage's Spider-Man Noir was hysterical. I love
His
that.
like 1940s what do you call it? Where he was just like jabbing people and stuff. Like
Yep.
I don't remember what he said, but it's like I don't get what you just said.
Yeah, exactly. It's just every part of it was great. And
I also
loved
liked
it.
how each character is drawn in their own visual style.
Yes.
Like the anime one is kind of more anime looking, and the
Yep.
noir one is like dark and
literally black
and
and white. Yep.
And then Spider-Ham is more like cartoony, and
Yeah.
and Spider-Gwen has got like this like futuristic-y aesthetic to her,
Yeah.
kind of, or like almost like 80s vibe with the teal and the pinks.
Yep.
So and they all just mesh together so well, like visually and personality wise.
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
I can't believe they pulled it off, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's crazy.
And
Especially
just,
since it was Sony.
right. No, it was like, what happened?
Yeah, like
they
what?
just,
Why couldn't you do this for any of your other Spider-Man
dude,
movies?
it feels like with, referring back to Aquaman, and with this too, it just feels like all of a sudden with certain IPs, people are like, oh yeah, artists know what they're doing. Like we should just let them
just let them actually
we should let them create their
create,
thing.
Yeah.
And what do you know when you let good people who know what they're doing do what they know how to do? Amazing
They
stuff
create
happens.
amazing stuff.
And
Yep.
and it earns you money. Why? Because it's good. And
Mhm.
this was one of those films where it was like, dudes, let people make their thing, man. Like this is what happens is you get something special like this, because I guarantee you if they would have done some of the force-handed, like, well, you need to reference this and you need to do this, and it's just, it would have fallen apart, because you would have been able to pick out, like, some exec needed them to reference this. But even then, some of the Easter eggs that they had, like when they're in the bottom of the suit or whatever, and the PS4 suit is on the far left. And so you get to see that, and it's like, that's part of the universe. That's pretty cool. I like that nod. But man, dude, like, it just was so good. And I loved Miles as a character. I loved his family and like the dynamic, and him and his dad was such a great, like how they handled that story. And then with his uncle,
Dude, I did
like,
not see that coming at all.
dude, I was like, oh, you're killing me. Like, this is so heavy. Like
even
just,
in the apartment, when the guy came into the apartment, I still didn't connect in my
didn't-
mind.
yeah.
But like, oh wait, his uncle is this guy. I thought he just like somehow tracked him down.
right.
And then I was like, oh no, not the uncle again.
Yeah.
Don't no. So yeah.
Yeah, and then just like the scene on the rooftop when he's like, he takes his mask off and he's
Yep.
like, Uncle Aaron, it's me. And just when he's like, oh frick, he's like, dude, Miles, no, like, you can't be this kid, like, you can't, like, dude. And just like that whole moment, and just how they animated his face to just be like, what do I do? I'm not gonna kill my nephew. And he's like, I can't. He's like, no, I can't do this. Bang, dead. And it was just like, like, what? Like, oh my gosh. It's just, everything was just so good. I just like have to close out every example with that. But
yeah, I feel like everything that was intended to like give you a certain emotional impact, it did
totally
it with full
did it.
force, and just punched you right in the gut, or like made
Exactly.
you tear up, or made you just grin with a giant cheesy grin. Like
Yep.
every emotional weight that each scenario had, like you just felt it with the full weight of what they were trying to do.
yeah, and
Yeah.
just there's a couple more moments, and otherwise I'm just gonna sit here and just say it's amazing.
I know we're
It's
just kind of
amazing. Go
cheesing
see it.
over it because like
There's like a couple distinct moments that I think really, really like grabbed me, and they're just kind of general. I don't think they're like overall like stylistic things. But man, dude, the whole Stan Lee tribute and how they tied that into the narrative,
I'm wondering, like, did they know at that time, or is this coincidental? Because like
it might have been.
It was right in the
coincidental.
wake of Peter Parker dying,
right?
and like the world was grieving, and then all of a sudden
I
Stanley's
almost
like,
cried.
Ding! I teared up. I was like, oh my gosh.
And just like I think what it was is it was just such a beautiful moment, because you know, going forward there's gonna be these tributes and people are gonna give like the fist bump in the theater, like, you go Stan, we miss you, but like narratively how his cameo came in, and again, this is hardcore spoilers, but via the Miles Morales story, Peter Parker in his universe dies, and so when we keep saying there is another Peter Parker, he's from a different multiverse. He ends up coming in Peter B. Parker. And so the Peter Parker in Miles' story dies, and he goes to this costume shop, and he's buying a Spider-Man costume, and he like brings it up to the counter, and he's like buying it. I can't remember what
he said. Is this gonna fit? Or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
Miles says
will
like,
this fit me, and he's like,
and then it cuts, and you see Stan for the first time, and you're like and then it's like, he's like, oh, it always fits, kid. And then just it goes on this whole like moment where I'm almost getting choked up now, where it's like this moment of he's like, it always fits, kid, and he's like,
and it has like a tooth like ding, like he's a little bit of a huckster, like the suit will fit you when you get older.
And I can't remember what Miles says, but he says something where he's like, I'm gonna miss him. And then Stan's like, yeah, I'm going to miss him too. And it was just like,
I know,
oh, dude, you're killing me. Like, man, it was just, but then right after that, it wasn't just like, yeah, I'm going to miss him too. And then he goes into this thing. He's like, we all got to be heroes now. He's like, but he's like, but here's the thing. He's in all of us. Like, we're all the hero. And then it goes to Miles in this crowd of all these people dressed up as Spider-Man. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I'm just like, man, dude, I have never like just felt this like chill of like
I feel like the theater was just dead silent at that moment.
It was just like, oh my goodness. It's an animated movie. It's an animated movie about a fake character that this guy made about a dude who slings around New York with webs and like fights crime. And yet in that moment, there was just this moment of like, in capturing exactly what Spider-Man was created for, in being a symbol. And like they had Stan Lee's quote at the end of the movie, I think, where it's like, you know, the thing about heroes is, you know, we're all a hero, and we can all wear the cape or something like that. And the general gist, and just how they carried that from Miles' whole storyline and the journey he's going to be going on into Stan Lee's cameo in this. And just like his own words that they used to solidify how, like, what his purpose for creating these dudes was. And it was just like, man, it was it was
and
amazing.
I feel like that's like a small moment that captures the entire ethos of this film.
Absolutely.
Because like the whole movie is about who is Spider-Man and who can be Spider-Man. And in partially that's Miles' story of like,
you can be Spider-Man.
Like, I don't really want to be Spider-Man. Like, I can't be Spider-Man.
Right.
I'm just a kid. Like,
right.
I'm not fit for it. And it was like the whole movie is just him exploring that idea. And when he finally does, you get like that shot of him jumping.
Dude, and that's
like
that's
the glass
my second
shatters,
thing.
like, and you finally realize what that picture was, and you're like, dude.
Oh my gosh. And that was my number 2 thing, and that's all I have to say, other than just like, get your butt to the theater now. Like, other than that,
watch it twice in a row.
Right. That shot might be the greatest, in my opinion, for me. That might be my favorite shot in any movie ever. And just specifically because everything that goes into that moment is just unbelievably cool and just gives you chills. Like so people have probably seen it in the trailer. So there's a shot where Miles is like falling into New York and like the perspective lines. It's just so cool. But the whole premise of the story at that point is Peter basically says, you know, you're not ready to do this. Like, we'll take care of this Kingpin thing. I'm going to stay behind. You need to go and figure this out because of whatever. And so he tells him, but like, when am I going to be ready to be Spider-Man? Like, when do I know if I'm actually legitimately ready? And he's like, and right before Peter leaves and you don't see the other crew for a good while, he tells Miles, like, you're never ready. It's just a leap of faith. And, like, that's just, like, the word that's, like, ringing in his head. And so after he, like, gets out of the situation and stuff, he, like, gets his suit and he puts the kick butt spray paint Spider-Man logo on the suit. And he's got the hoodie and, like, the Nike kicks. And he, like, climbs up to this huge tower in New York. And the entire time, it's just, like, all these things that people have been saying. He's like, he's not ready. He's not good enough. All this stuff. And it's echoing. Mm-hmm. And then right as it, like, it's, like, zoomed in on his face. And it's just, like, it's just a leap of faith. And he just backflips in slow motion
and
off
I love
this
like the
giant,
glass shattering like with the fingers like
and just like, and he backflips off of this building, and it just all the cuts that it goes to where it's like the New York skyline is like at the top of the screen pointed down, and he's like falling into it, and the camera's like crushing him into it, and it's just recalling. It's just like that whole, and like the music that's playing, it's like this hip hop like lo-fi vibe, but it's just kind of got that, you know, it's brooding in the moment of like, this is Miles' leap of faith, and here he goes. And it was just like, oh my goodness.
Does he go into a monologue then after that, like kind of like saying like the thing about being Spider-Man and blah 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 and like all this stuff?
And I think that's right at the end when he like lands or does something, and I think he's flying through New York, and he's like using the webs, and there's like one last like hard swing he does, and I think that's when the comic book cover closes, just like all the other ones, and that's when like Miles' comic book cover is on all the other ones. And so like that was just one of those moments where if you're the wrong person, you're gonna be like, that's corny, like, oh, of course. But I think to me, what made it so amazing was you have the conglomeration of what a film is leading into this moment to just be soaked in. Like, you have the story of Miles rising into this mantle. You have him in the art and the cinematography framed in this way that is just so disorienting, but like so freaking cool at the same time, mixed with the art style and the music. It's just like everything culminated in like one moment into the finalization of like Miles Morales is Spider-Man. And it was just like, boom!
And I think in any other movie like that would be cheesy but I think the reason, like you're saying, that it works is because there's not only the story that's happening, there's the emotion you're feeling while the story's happening, and all of that emotion that you're feeling is represented visually on the screen.
Exactly.
Everything that is happening is the appropriate thing that should be happening in that moment. And like the reason it feels so good is because they just get it so right. Like everything just it just fits so well.
Yeah.
Like, and that scene is like basically the climax of the movie in some ways. Like you're just like, oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
It just gives me chills every time I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so cool. But yeah, this was. Before I need to not go on anything else. Sorry, I
There's
completely
so many things we're forgetting.
I took this and just ran because I've been so stoked to talk about this one since I texted you. We're like, dude, we're doing it. That's like the first one back. But to just kind of close out my thoughts, this movie was very special, and this was one of those movies that even if you don't see it in theaters, I highly recommend seeing it in theaters, just because I think you will really, really feel the art and the cinematography and stuff like that.
I think if you're a fan of superheroes in any way,
capacity,
shape, or form, like
get out and go.
This movie is one of the greats. Like this movie will go down in history. I feel like it's not doing as well as it should in the box office, but I feel like this is the movie that's going to go down in history as like it's just going to sell a crap ton in Blu-ray and DVD.
Oh yeah,
like, this is going to be a cult classic.
Yep.
If you can call it that. So,
yeah.
Like, this is something you need to see this movie.
Definitely. Yeah. It's just this movie was special, and I don't know when we're going to see another movie like this.
I don't even know how the sequel is going to be able to recapture what this just did.
But I'm
excited for it.
Yeah.
Like, I trust the artists behind it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that's the cool thing about it is what they set up is they're setting up another person's story. They're not setting up
another
like,
Miles Morales story.
Yeah, and maybe they are, and maybe he does play into it, and that would be cool.
I think he'll be in it because of some of the scenes that happen at the end.
But I think like what's awesome is that I'm excited to see what they're gonna do with more stuff, and these creators and from what they've made, I trust wherever they go.
Yep.
Which, and this will be the last thing, and then we'll just kind of close out the show. But the end credit scene made me geek so freaking hard, and I did not realize that it was a sequel illusion because I thought it was just that was the post.
Yeah, they've
scene.
confirmed that there's a sequel already in the works.
Dude.
So
the reason I was stoked is because at the end, there's like this lady voice talking, and you're kind of like, who is it? And it's like a black screen. You're kind of like, I don't get it. And she's like, is there anything else you need, Miguel? And I was like, oh, I know who that is. That's Spider-Man 2099. Like, dude, like they're bringing Spider-Man 2099 into this. Like, what? So, and
it's Oscar Wilde that plays his voice too.
Yeah.
The guy from Star Wars.
And like the, dude, the post-credit scene too with like the old school Spider-Man like pointing thing. Like that whole thing was just like, how did you do it? How did you somehow on this whole Sunday already topped with whipped cream and cherries somehow like dump like 2 more sundaes on top of it and like still make it? It was just like, that was just so perfect. It was just, go watch it for crying out loud. If you haven't seen it yet, watch it like 4 times. Like,
I'm definitely seeing it a second time before it's out of theaters.
I need to.
Yeah.
I really want to.
Yeah.
It just, to me, it was that good. It was
I saw it in 3D
spectacular.
too. It was amazing in 3D.
I could see that being pretty crazy.
It was probably one of the only movies that I would actually make an argument for it
3D
being worth
worth
seeing
it.
in 3D. Yeah.
Nice.
It was just insane.
Awesome.
So
cool.
It's I don't even have any more thoughts. Like the movie is just amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty much my gist.
So
with that, we'll close out the show for this week. But just as a reminder, you can follow us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, and YouTube. We've got Threadless and Redbubble merch store that has like our logos and stuff. We're going to be potentially throwing up some new things as some new creative projects that we're working on will be going through. Check us out at those places already listed. I haven't done this for so long. I'm out of practice.
It's been a while.
I'm trying to think of all the things I need to tell you.
And another,
folks.
We haven't said in a while, but if you are listening and you do love the show, or if you have thoughts, feel free to leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
That would be greatly appreciated.
That would help with the getting it out there.
That helps
sort of
spread
thing.
it. Yeah,
help spread it out. So,
yep.
Yeah, leave a review. If you hate it, if you love it, whatever.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. Yeah,
haven't
just
said that
take.
in a while.
I think you can literally submit one through any of those apps. I think it's especially easy through like the iTunes app.
iTunes, it's just boom, stars, boom,
5 stars. It's like 2
5
seconds,
stars,
dude.
easy.
Like
Boom,
that's
done.
all you got to do. But yeah, so we'd love to hear any feedback. So please leave us a review. It really helps us. I think right now we're our own worst critics, so we're trying to move the show in a direction that we feel like it's naturally, organically moving. But we are also doing this not only for ourselves, but for you, the listeners. So we really want to make sure that we're in tune with what you are wanting to hear and what's landing with you. And Libsyn statistics only tell us so much with that. And so, getting your words or getting your ideas or getting your questions is really, really helpful for us. So we'd really appreciate that. And you can email any of those things to popculturepunks@gmail.com, or you can send us that also on Twitter at popculturepunks, which is our handle. Our personal Twitters are, and I changed it. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
But my Twitter handle has actually changed as I've been moving into a different mode with social media for freelance stuff. So I am at JK in pop culture. Phil is I am at Phil Sorensen. Zach is C San Pellegrino. Chris is at Chris of the Vast. And I already listed the show one. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We tend to post funny pictures on Instagram and Facebook. Not so much on Twitter just because it's our personal, but we've tried
I've
to
decided
forward
to start
them.
doing it. I'll probably just reply to whatever the auto post is with
That's a good idea.
the picture and be like, doo-doo-doo.
Yeah. So if you want to see like a funny little thing posted for us, about concerning the episode, we're hoping to do shorts later in the year, but that might take some time because we gotta see some reactions, folks. Like if we don't know if you like them, we won't do it. So just saying.
Yeah, buddy.
I think that's it.
One last reminder, next week we will be discussing our hype and our predictions for this coming year, or I guess this year, 2019.
Yep.
All the things we're excited about, video game-wise, TV-wise, movie-wise, what have you, anything pop culture, we'll be talking about it. And if you want to join in that discussion, shoot us an email at the one we just mentioned.
Or at any of those
social media sites. What are you hyped for? What are you excited about? What are you skeptical about? Let us know in those things, and we'll discuss them as well.
Yes, we will. And with that, this is our discussion of Aquaman and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Hope you had a good time. We are back, baby! 2019! Yeah, it's going to be a tight year.
The year of the punks.
Year of the punks, baby. We're going to take it by storm.
Yep.
Or by moshing.
Or by keeping it posy.
Posy vibes,
Do
baby.
it for the pod.
And with that, we wish you a 2019 with posy vibes sized cowabunga, dude!
Job security, but I've been dreaming about packing it all up, cause the war in me just won't relent till there's nothing left but dust. So what do you do when the walls start closing in, and everyone you love tells you it's all just in your head?